Welcome everybody to the first Game Wisdom Live of 2018. This is going to be for the week of January 7th. Once again, I am Josh Placer. Joining me is video game producer Robert Leach.
Hello.
Hey Rob, it's great talking to you again. We kind of missed the last few weeks. It feels like it's been ages since we last spoke.
It definitely does.
Hey, El Gordo and Josh, thanks for coming on. But whew, boy, it's been a crazy couple of weeks around here. For those of you who missed the announcement, I came down with a cold literally 3 days away from the end of the year. I almost made it 365 days without getting sick, and then this damn cold, which I think has affected everyone in the United States at this point, got to me.
Yeah, you got to knock that stuff out earlier in the year so you don't, jinx yourself for the end.
Yeah. Right now I'm about 80-90% of the way better. I'm past the point where I'm just laying in bed wishing to die, but it's still bad enough that it's just messing with everything around. So there's a good chance I may have to mute my mic and do an off-screen cough or blow my nose. So we'll see what happens over the next hour or so. Before I get to some news about what's been going on with Game Wisdom, how's everything with you, Rob? How is your job, and how's, of course, was your New Year's?
Both are very good. My job is very good. My New Year's was very good. No real complaints here. I feel bad for you guys on the East Coast because the weather here's been very nice. So yeah, things have been very good the last few weeks.
We were talking about it in our Discord chat, but I know did you pitch 2K yet the Josh Royale mode for their Josh boxes yet?
I had already told you that's I can't really say much about it, but it's already there. It is called Josh Royale, and you'll be seeing it too soon in 2K Sports. So it's weird how that works.
Yeah,
I can't tell you. So you'll have to either guess about it or buy all the games from now until the end of the universe. So you can actually see how it works, because I'd like to know.
Yeah. You better maybe you can reveal to Josh and you can do a esports coverage on it.
Oh, there you go. Basketball Royale.
For those of you who missed it, I'm afraid to say that the meme of calling things the Dark Souls of something is no longer relevant anymore. Seems like everybody has moved on to Battle Royale. So be sure to look for a lot more, Battle Royale style games from now until the end of 2018. We need to figure out, Rob, for next year. We need to get ahead of the curve here and figure out what the next big trend's going to be.
Yeah, no. If I could do that, I'd probably be wealthier than I am. Yeah, picking trends is not my forte.
Yeah, me too. I keep saying that. I remember, of course, saying Steam would never work. This whole crazy thing. No one's ever going to want to do that, right?
The only thing I ever predicted would be successful and was the Wii. That was it.
Oh boy. So, I guess with news that's been going on around here, or at least with Game Wisdom, today's going to kind of be our belated end of the year show, because we unfortunately missed last year with me being sick. But with news that's been going on, I did get confirmation about the radio show in terms of broadcasting my older podcasts. It should be starting, I believe, around next week. And she should give me a frequency that if you're in the New Jersey or Pennsylvania area, you'll be able to give a listen to it. I did hear back from my library contact. We got 3 planned for the spring, and then that will be it for that season. Then I'm hoping to see more for summer and then maybe fall. And I'm still trying to find more areas to do presentations with, if there's anyone locally who has any ideas on that front. One of them, they want to do something about Ready Player One, so I finally started to read that over the week while I've been sick. And I think I'm 5-6 chapters in, so going pretty fast. I'm going to see if I can try and knock it out over the next day or so. And I guess, what did you think of Ready Player One?
I really liked it. I mean, it was one of those books that was an easy read, and it just had a lot of... certainly there's a lot of nostalgia for myself in particular, but I did really like the story, and I liked the use of technology. It was a pretty solid, in terms of my background, it's a pretty solid science fiction book. It felt relatively well written. It was very fluid and had interesting characters, and I did think it tied together a lot of social aspects, especially concerning how online social aspects work.
Yeah. I need to think of a presentation. I haven't gotten one yet, so hopefully I'll figure something out by the end of the book for it. But yeah.
Well, just wait until the movie comes out, then claim it as your own and say, I did a lot of work and spent a lot of money on my presentation. Here it is.
Steven Spielberg and I, we really got together over the last few months. I'm
He
listed
knows where
on
to
there.
go.
Yeah, exactly. Although it's a very interesting tidbit. Supposedly, my mom told me that we have a family friend of a friend who may be a distant relative of Steven Spielberg. But he's
Ooh.
not talking to anyone of his family anymore. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show up at Steven's house for anything.
Friend of a relative. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I know. Weird stuff. Let's see, anything else going on? Still working on the ebook. We did hit over 2,600 subscribers on the YouTube channel this week. So thank you to everyone who is subscribing and enjoying the content. I'm sure there'll be more coming up. I just started a Let's Play of Prey 2017 a few days ago. We had a whole crazy thing with trying to get El Gordo gifted it to me, but we had to do a gift card thing, but then there was a currency issue along with it because he's not in the United States. So we had a whole little fun few days of getting that going.
It does sound fun. Steam makes stuff outside the United States very, very interesting.
Did you have a chance to play Prey yet?
No, I was never that one never quite drew me in, so I have not gotten it or played it.
Yeah, it's definitely very much on that BioShock kind of design in terms of, very wide areas in terms of what you're able to do. Like, I'm just going around whacking monsters with a wrench right now in it. That's my master stealth action in that game. But yeah, it definitely plays itself to be more of like a sandbox experience compared to something like Doom or Wolfenstein. Now, with that said, this is, like I said, going to be our belated 2017 cast, so we can kind of talk about some of the games we've enjoyed over the year. If you missed it, I put up my top 10 list on GameWisdom.com. Unfortunately, with the sickness, I was all ready to be before December 31st to get it out, and then I got sick, and then that pushed everything back, so my grand plan was delayed there. Before we get going with that, though, for those of you watching this either live or recorded, I am currently, it's basically open enrollment for podcast guests for either the live or record ones. I've officially finished my backlog of casts after like 3 months, so now I need to find more people to talk to. So if you're interested in talking about game design or working on an upcoming game, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Right now, I do have something possibly planned for Wednesday for a live cast, but I don't know 100% just yet if it's confirmed. So please get in touch with me because we like talking about game design around here. So, with that said, I'm still planning a special thank you critical thought for everyone who enjoyed everything throughout 2017. I have a whole song musical number planned, Rob, but now while I'm sick, I don't know if I'm able to do it just yet. Or if people even want to hear me have a little musical rendition there.
That just sounds like excuses to me.
Maybe I'll make it a Patreon goal. $200, Josh will serenade you once a month, or he'll do a special musical number for you. And then that'll either propel me into stardom, or everyone will disappear. Everyone will get off the channel. I don't own a top hat, Thorn. I've been thinking I need some kind of like hat-related thing. I don't know. What do you think, Rob? Do you think a top hat would work?
I think that's a part of the stretch goal. So you get to a certain amount, you'll get a top hat, and then you'll go dance and sing.
Yeah, and a monocle too. We need that.
Of course,
I think top hat, and then extra for a cane. I think there we go. We complete the whole ensemble there.
Yeah.
Oh, and also I just remember, I think AGDQ is this week as well. Another the speedrunning marathon. So I'm sure a lot of people are busy watching that. I think El Gordo is probably tuning in. I usually catch them all on Rewind or Archived. What about you, Rob?
I'm the same way. Occasionally I'll watch one live when I catch it. But unless it's just random and I catch it, it's unlikely I'll be watching it live.
Yeah.
I usually do watch it recorded.
I've been watching a lot of the speedrunner, the Mexican runner on YouTube. He does an entire series where he's trying to play every Nintendo game ever made. Okay. And I'm just sitting there, dumbstruck that he was able to play games like the Three Stooges, The Boy and His Blob, and even like some of those very crappier NES games. I think he's up to like 600 or something of like the 700 games release. So
That's a
good
lot.
on him for doing that.
And now is he using? I'm guessing he's using a simulator.
Yeah, and he's got an emulator, but he's also collecting all the cartridges as well. But yeah, it is crazy. He's also the guy who holds the world record for Battletoads, the NES
Oh,
version.
weird, crazy.
Yeah, that game, that's another one that, oh man, I still have nightmares of that third stage of going through that.
I played Battletoads. I did not play it all the way through. That was never one of my stories of defeating it.
I still have a T-shirt for beating Mega Man, the Yellow Devil fight without using the electrical Man glitch. I did
Ah,
that at a convention, and they gave me a T-shirt for doing it. That's
nice.
my thing. But then they had a challenge to beat the sixth stage of Battletoads when you're in like a race to bomb. I just couldn't do that one. Mm, mm. Let's see. I got a bunch of game keys to check out. I was looking at Railway Empires. Oh, and I finally picked up Planet Coaster, which I've yet to actually
Ah,
load up.
see,
So
that's a shame.
yeah,
That's a shame.
I know. Too many games, Rob. There's just too many damn games to play.
Yeah, but not as many are like Planet Coaster as there should
hmm
be.
Oh, I finally did pick up that Shadow Tactics game, which I need to also get to that at some point. It's just been a very busy time. Hey, Getter. Oh, that reminds me. Chances are we won't be doing a Grim Dawn co-op play tonight. Rob, unfortunately, has some things to do, but we're going to see about trying to set up a night that we can both get on and play our co-op builds. I
Yeah,
started yet another character, so now I have 3 hardcore characters. Basically, if one dies, we can just immediately switch to the next one, and no one will hopefully notice I'm using a completely different build. But,
yeah. Just
mhm.
make sure you can share all the loot that you get.
Mm.
That way you can make it look exactly the same.
Yeah, no one will notice, right?
No one will notice.
But with that said, today, like I said, we're going to try and do some catch up about 2017. I'm trying to think if there's any news to talk about. The only thing that I saw that really caught my eye was the whole GOG thing with Opus Magnum. For those of you who don't know, Opus Magnum, the latest game from Zachtronics and Zach Barth, has been denied access to the GOG. It did not meet their vetting system for or their curation. And it's got a very interesting thing. There's a lot of people complaining about GOG, saying, how dare you keep this game off the platform? But in the same breath, this is the whole point of a curated system, to make sure that only the games the publisher or the platform holder wants gets on that platform.
Yeah, I had mentioned on the thing like an hour ago, maybe that's. I mean, Steam started out as highly curated, and then they actually stopped being curated when they realized that they're not the best people to pick and choose what's going to be popular and what's not, and what people want and what they don't. And they got a lot of flack for it, and they just decided, you know what? Let's let the people decide. Everything goes through. So it is one of those things. If you want to be a curator, you're going to have to live with some of those consequences. And you do. I basically imagine that they have to have some kind of clause out there that says, we will deny anything for any reason we believe is appropriate, and that could include, I don't like that color of green. So you never know how that works, or what the story is behind it. I know I had a game that we submitted to GOG, and they denied it. I'll admit it wasn't a great game. I mean, it was a good game, and it had a retro vibe. That's why we went for it, but they denied it outright.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about Eldritch Forces. Maybe that could be the next curated system there.
Yeah,
But,
sounds good.
but yeah, as you said, Rob, it's one of those catch-22 systems, because there are people who, of course, say, why does Steam let everything on? There's all this crap. How dare you put all these games on? And then you go to GOG, and it's like, what? You ban a very good game? How dare you do that? Why don't you let everything on? You can't
Yeah.
really win.
Yeah, no, you can't.
hmm
It's not possible.
Yeah. And I was reading the article on Polygon about it, or I think some people were talking about, but it's one of those cases where you can't tell people what your metrics are, because then people will try to get around it. It's the same thing that happened with Greenlight. You say, oh, you need so-and-so number of people to vote for your game, guess what happened? An
Yeah,
entire business came up of people saying, we'll vote for your game on Greenlight if you pay us.
yeah. Now, I mean, one thing that people don't really recognize is that there's an ultimate curated system out there that's been in place for decades, and that's console.
Yeah.
Like, no one really ever complains that a certain game didn't make it on a console, knowing that, like, because you never know what happens behind the scenes. You never know what game got in there and got rejected. And usually, if it gets rejected, they give some kind of reason. But yeah, consoles have been highly curated for a very long time, and I think because of the platform, because of the way you get games through them, no one really cares so much.
And of course, I think another major part of that is you have to get certified for your game to be on consoles. You have to meet all the requirements, make sure your game handles controls, no frame drops, all that crazy stuff.
Be able to handle the submission fees.
Yeah. So it's a lot more, or I'm sorry, there's a lot more requirements compared to something like GOG or Steam or stuff like that. And that's also why a lot of indie developers do like the PC. You can just put your game up, have a humble store widget, and you're good to go.
Yeah, it is, as having done indie game publishing, it is a difficult thing to do because one, Steam is the thing to get on. It doesn't, like, it's not close. But then you got a whole bunch of smaller platforms and smaller, which GOG and Humble are the top tier of that second tier. And then you got a whole bunch of scrubs out there, and it's just really hard to figure out where the best place is to put your game and how hard you should try to get it there. Because it is effort. Once you get after Steam, there's a lot more effort, and Steam has enough effort on its own.
Yeah. And as you said, like, Steam has been the 800-pound gorilla for so long that it's just like, for a lot of people, your game's either on Steam or you're not making video games as an indie developer. Yeah. And I know when we spoke with Cliff Harris and Jake Burgett a few weeks ago for Shadowhand, they both talked about why, that there should be a fee. There should be some kind of hurdle to get on Steam. Like, if Steam is, the high-end retailer of the game industry, your first game that you just made, in your basement for 2 months shouldn't be on that platform next to, someone who's been doing this for years.
Yeah. Well, when you get into the money gateways, that's when things become a problem. I understand where they were trying to go with Greenlight, and I understand why it was I wouldn't say an abject failure, but there are a lot of things that need thinking about. I'm sure they're thinking about it now because they've been forced to, after having had to give up Greenlight and deal with that fallout. I'm sure they're going to come up with something, and I'm sure we're all going to hate it. So we'll have to see what happens.
And several dozen indie developers will cry it as the end of the indie market as well. That always seems to come up as well. It's
always the end of the indie market. Every day, it's the end.
It's all going battle royale.
Indie battle royale. That's the way they should get games on Steam. Indie game battle royale.
100 games enter, 1 game gets on.
Exactly.
Let's see. Anything else going on? I guess for you, Rob, any interesting news pieces this week?
No, back to work. It's good job, etc. So I'm enjoying that this week. Oh, I do have some news. I'm nearing for one of my first characters, first decent characters in Torchlight 2. I'm just about to hit 100, so that's the big milestone I'm going for. And yeah, that's about it games wise. I haven't played Planet Coaster at all this year. Shame on me. But yeah, as far as games go, that's my news.
All right. Let's see. And at some point, like I said, we do need to get back to our Grim Dawn characters.
Yes. Yeah, we need to get back to Grim Dawn. I'll play a little on the side just to get better at it.
Trying to quickly look at Kama Sutra, see if there's anything new there. Oh, here's something that's very interesting that was brought to my attention. I think El Gordo mentioned this, and I saw a YouTube video about it, but there's been more talk about the issues Destiny 2 has been having. And the latest thing that was confirmed was that the game ran into a lot of development problems in mid-2016, with basically them having to redo a lot of content and mix things up around. And I thought that was a very interesting thing. I think El Gordo or someone else may have said this online the other night, but I think The Last of Us 2 is running into problems like that as well, where the game is going a lot slower than they thought and they have to change things up. And I thought that was very interesting because usually when we talk about AAA developers, it's more about it's more about iteration or refinement rather than creating unique stuff. Like you really don't hear about these problems all that much from the AAA side.
It's really all behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a million horror stories that people are always talking about with regards to a AAA developer missing their deadlines over and over and over again. And you do hear feature creep come and play a big part in that kind of thing, especially when it's marketing driven. A lot of times a lot of the games just fly under the radar and they just go and they're relatively smooth from a consumer standpoint. But there's always issues. There's always something that can happen. A key member of your team leaves, quits, whatever. You have people start not having a good time working together. Creative differences. Go ahead.
I was just saying, like, the design's not working as anticipated. They have to redo content. Maybe
certainly. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, maybe like a bad demo or bad early impressions or playtesting affected things.
Yeah, and a lot of times a new technology will come out, and that'll drive things squirrely because a lot of times you can't predict it. And it'll just go nuts. Or, as you've seen recently, a new business model might come out. Maybe something that is like a loot box, or a battle royale feature that you need, or an esports feature that you need. Those are the kind of features that crop up, and usually it's upper management or someone decides, oh, we need to have that in order to stay relevant with our game type.
And for those of you watching, sorry about going off screen there. I'm just still dealing with this cold, so I figure you guys don't want to see me blowing my nose every 5 minutes there.
That's correct, Getter. No magic formula.
And as we said before, when it comes to the AAA scene, I know when I spoke with Ramin about it, they are very much chasing the trends. So they're always like a several months or even a few years behind. So who knows? I think 2018 may be the year of the loot box, because everything is 1 year behind, and maybe 2019 will be the year of everything being battle royale. But it's just one of those very interesting things there.
Yeah, although I do believe that on the AAA side, people can pivot a lot faster than that. You will see delays in a lot of the bigger titles just because they take so long to make, but some of them they can crank out new features pretty, I wouldn't say seamlessly, it's never seamless, but that's why you see like loot boxes, they all popped up very quickly.
Or a Fortnite Battle Royale mode that...
And yes.
Surprisingly, how fast that was done. And that's when I talk about in the critical thought regarding copywriting game mechanics or systems. This is why it's very important to have something that's brand. Because... Thank you, Getter. That's because mechanics themselves... Once you know how things work, it's very easy to copy those. And mechanics by themselves cannot be copyrighted, or you can't have an IP. So no matter how much PUBG wants to be the only Battle Royale game, that's not going to happen.
Right.
And
no.
That is a very easily copyable formula. Same thing that happened with Flappy Bird, or Clash of Clans, or Farmville, or Candy Crush, and you name it.
Well, the benefits of Farmville and Candy Crush is they had the money to defend it and remain the top player. I don't know if PUBG can do it. I know that they have a lot of attention, and somehow they were nominated for awards when they weren't a completed game. But when you're first person on the block, and certainly they're not the only battle royale game to ever be invented, but when you're kind of that first contender in a new space, it's unlikely you're going to hold that space. So we'll see how that goes. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, even World of Warcraft wasn't the first MMO to come out. It took, it was still out for several years before it became kind of the de facto king.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, what was I to say about... Oh, yeah, getting back to Destiny 2, what's very interesting is that if Destiny 2 fails, it's going to be very telling to see what happens with Bungie next.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about Destiny. I'll have to watch that video and catch myself up a bit because I just do not know what is exactly going on.
Hmm. Yeah, like we've said this before, but a lot of people really don't realize how risky game development can be, either from the independent side or the AAA side. And I mean, Bungie has already been one of the most celebrated developers over the last decade. I mean, Halo by itself was a very big game changer for
Yeah.
the console space. So it would be very shocking that, if Destiny 2 fails along with Destiny 1, like what would happen to them if they closed down?
It's always a tough question to ask. For a studio like that, I mean, this is one of those things that you got to think of a studio like a sports team.
Hmm.
They're constantly losing and gaining talent, and especially if something up top goes squirrely, then the rest of it just kind of disappears, and you just wind up with a less good studio. So it's hard for me to look at a Bungie now and say, oh, they're the same team that made Halo.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think that's ever going to be the case. So it's a tough thing for me to get married to a studio. It's just because they are this changing organism.
Yeah. The same thing for me with Telltale. Uh, I remember like earlier in 2017, I made a post about like how I'm just no longer in love with Telltale. I got several tweets from people who used to work there saying that a lot of the core staff, the people who made like Sam and Max, one of my favorite series, is
Yeah.
no longer there. And there's probably a greater talk to be had about that in terms of that kind of company culture. Because, as you just said, Rob, when you're dealing with a company like a AAA developer, or as Gator just said, Blizzard, you would like to think that just because Blizzard puts their name on Hearthstone or, wow, StarCraft or Heroes of the Storm, that it's the same Blizzard as Diablo 2 or Blackthorn for those of you, or even Lost Vikings for some of the older fans here.
Love Lost Vikings.
Me too. But at what point does that kind of studio change? Like, at what point, like, I guess the question is, like, who really is, like, makes that company? Like, as we said with independent developers, the beauty of it is when I talk to the lead designer, when I talk to Jake Burkett of Gray Alien Games, he is Gray Alien Games. Like, there's no one else there. Or,
Yeah.
like, if he leaves, Gray Alien Games doesn't go on. It's done. When I talk to Zach Barth, Chris Park, or any other number of indie developers, they are their studios. But if I talk to someone, I don't know, like if I talk to someone at Relic Games or someone at Blizzard, God willing, at some point we get someone from Blizzard on there, like, do they really represent that company? Like, if they leave, does the company still go on as the same as it was?
Right. No, I think you actually just defined for us,
Mm-hmm.
and we should mark this on our calendars. You just defined what an indie game company is, I think.
Ah, there you go. Where's XP? We need to get him on for that because he's been
Yeah.
talking about it for the last few casts. But
But like totally, if one of the members of the team leaves and the indie game studio can't go on, I feel like that's a great metric.
it could be. But that's the very interesting point about AAA development. They are made up of dozens, in some cases hundreds of people. So if your lead designer leaves, you could replace him, but does that change the game? Or does it change the game enough for it to be something else?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Coming with my new job, it's with Visual Concepts. I don't know if a lot of you are familiar, but I started there with my game career, and now I'm back 15 years later, and there's a lot of the people that I worked with back then that are still on the team. So they've been lucky and managed to hold a giant core together. But I know a lot of other companies that I've been at aren't so lucky. Like even during my time at Disney, where I was on a smaller team for sure, but this was at Disney Interactive Gaming, Disney Interactive Games. But that one in particular, like the head of that branch changed 3 times in the 18 months I was there. 3 times. And in my little team, we had turnover of everyone. The my bosses, the two women that ran that department, they both left. There were three more people who came on. Two of them left. So in a very short period of time, one entire team can be completely gutted and turned over. So that when I look at a AAA studio and knowing that that can happen, it really does bring a lot of questions to mind.
Yeah, like here's another one. Like, who really is responsible, or who really is the personality of the game? Is it the studio head or the creative director or lead designer? Because again, design is such a amorphous topic that's really hard to put in words just what it means to design a video game.
Well, and I think that is where the size of the studio comes into play a lot. Because let's go back to Blizzard. You know, you mentioned all these properties they have. There's no way that the team of World of Warcraft is also working on Hearthstone. I mean, I'm sure there might be some crossover, but like that's two totally different teams working on two totally different projects. You're not going to get much crossover in terms of look and feel, and except for what the artists can mimic. But that's too big of a studio and too many projects going simultaneously. Excuse me.
And I'm glad Getter brought up the Lord British, of course, Richard Garriott, the maker of Ultima, and famously known as a guy who owns his own castle somewhere in, I think, Middle America. But that's a really big point about the industry, because as we've said before, we've seen, I guess, quote-unquote rock star developers, or the big names, your Sid Meier's, I can't even pronounce his name. If you can say it, Rob.
I can't.
There you go.
I'm
The
like,
guy,
I don't remember names
guy.
enough for you to say Cliff, and I know it offhand. There's only so many designers, sadly, that I can name. But yeah.
Even like famous Japanese developers, Hideo Kojima, Suda51. I mean, a really great example would be Yoko Taro, the developer of Nier Automata. I mean, with these people, they really become the personification of their studios or their games.
Yeah.
I mean, Metal Gear, for instance. We were talking about this on our stream last night, but Konami's going forward with Metal Gear Survive, which is going to be their Kojima-less Metal Gear game, and a lot of people are going to assume it's going to suck, and for very good reasons, because Shigeru Miyamoto as well. Like, if you're making a Metal Gear game and you don't have Hideo Kojima, I mean, he's basically the father of that series. Like, you can't really... Like, yes, you could give it to someone else, but the exact, DNA of Metal Gear is from Hideo Kojima. For instance, imagine if someone made, let's say, for instance, that BioWare gets called to make the next Nier game, and they don't get Yoko Taro. Like, how are they going to do the same thing as he did? Or
well,
she?
It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter, because once you bring out a new thing, unless you're bringing all the artists and all the sound designers, you got a whole new team of artists. Like, they're not going to be able to copy everything perfectly. But what I feel like there's two ways that a new designer or developer can go. Either they embrace the old and make a copy of the old instead of going with something new, or you're changing the direction and coming up with something new, and in both ways you're risking people hating it.
And I think that you just had like the perfect serendipitous comment right there, Rob, just as Josh was saying that. And that's another really good point. Star Wars. I mean, for the longest time, people felt that George Lucas was, one for one with Star Wars. But then, once he sold the property to Disney, and now they're making their own movies, it's now a completely different thing. And the whole controversy with The Last Jedi being a good example. You have people complaining, you have people complaining, it's too similar, or it's too different from the old one, so I hate it. And then you have people saying, I wanted something that was, this is too different, like The Force Awakens, people complain it was too similar. And then The Last Jedi, people complain it was too different. So you can't really make everybody happy like that.
No. I mean, but you could even say George Lucas, and then The Phantom Menace comes out, and you're like, wait a minute, is this the same guy? I mean, he didn't direct Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. So what, besides being the storyteller, the character creator, how much of the visual that came out of it was actually his, other than just kind of maybe the flow of things or whatever. But like I know he didn't control all of the visuals, seeing as how the difference between Star Wars, New Hope, and Phantom Menace, and those three were kind of wildly variant.
Yep. And Josh brought up Shigeru Miyamoto earlier, and that's another really good point. I know Miyamoto these days, he's more of an advisor rather than, hands-on. He's kind of giving it to the new generation to make those games. And, like, Nintendo's another really good example, like that studio where they've really built up this culture. Like, you don't think of Nintendo from individual developers unless you're a hardcore Nintendo fan. But Nintendo has done a really good job, I think, of keeping like a consistent element to their games. Like we've said this before, but when you're playing a Nintendo game. Like there's that certain, je ne sais quoi to Nintendo. But for a lot of studios, as Getter says, like we see this, that for a lot of the best games, despite the developers or the team that gets behind it, we really only associate to the studio. I mean,
Right.
We mentioned The Last of Us a few minutes ago, but Naughty Dog is a big example. Or stuff like Insomniac, where like we think of them as the Ratchet and Clank or Uncharted or Last of Us, but how many people actually know the actual team who made those games? Probably very few people outside of the hardcore fans.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think, like even something like BioShock. I mean, you can say that BioShock was developed by Irrational Games, but I'm fairly sure that you didn't have the exact same team work on BioShock 1 that you did work on BioShock Infinite.
Oh no.
So the question comes up then, who is the secret sauce of these games? Is it the creator? Or is it a combination of people? Because you'll never hear developers or publishers outright say one or the other. Because if you say it's a developer, then you're throwing the entire team under the bus. If you say it's the team, then you're throwing the creative director or the guy who came up with the idea under the bus.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing could be said in movies. I mean, you have a big name on there. It's a director, but then you have a cinematographer, an editor, and all these people that go into actually making this thing. And then there's the writer and all that stuff. It's the same with games. It really is. To call out one person and give them all the credit or all the blame is kind of it doesn't make much sense. But because bad things happen to good teams and good things happen to bad teams, and it's a mess, is what it is.
And it goes back to our earlier point, Ben, about like, so then how do you prop up developers? How do you give like individual people the credit they deserve? I mean, as a really good example, the whole Game of the Year awards, or the Game of the Year award show from earlier, or I should say a few weeks ago at this point, you rarely hear them mention individual people. They'll say, the winner is PUBG, the winner is Hearthstone, or The Last of Us. But you rarely hear them say, created by so-and-so, or the lead designer was this person. So it becomes very hard to associate the people to these games.
It is, especially when there's so many creative elements. I mean, the art and the writing and the design are three very different, and the programmer, they're all very different art forms in and of themselves. I mean, you can't have a game programmer be not creative because of how complex this stuff is. And certainly the person who gives the look to it is not necessarily the designer, especially these days. The designer will help generate what the guts of
like
the game
are. Like the theme or like the overall world, but that goes to the art team.
Yeah, and also the overall feel for a game might not even be one of those groups. It could be something else. And I don't know. It's a giant, as you say, Getter, it's a stew. It is. It's hard to call somebody out, and I know that at some point they're going to start. It seems like it has to go that way because we talk about some of these designers like they are rock stars, and we do give them all the praise and laudations for the stuff that has come out of either them or their teams or their studios, and sometimes rightfully and sometimes not. But I think we'll eventually have that.
Yeah, like I was just thinking about like when we have like I think it's the Emmys or the Oscars where they have best costume design or cinematography or sound. Like I'm curious why, if we'll ever get that in the game industry, like an award for best UI in a video game, or you know, I don't know, most technically or bug-free game of the year, or something like that.
Well, I know in movies it all has one central location
Yeah.
or a couple. Like you got Hollywood, and that's where film is. There's no such place for games.
Yeah.
It's all over the world. In every country, there's a studio that maybe not every country, but in a lot of countries, there's a studio that represents like that country very well. Well, certainly in a region, there's several studios, and they're just all over. So it's hard to have one like community where everyone can like talk and agree on one thing. I don't think it's possible so much.
Yeah. And Getter just hit the nail on the head right there. The whole issue of unions.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, Rob, but I would agree. I would love to see video game unions or see stuff like that around here.
Yeah, I mean, they're especially given the past issues that games have had with people having to work 60 to 80-hour weeks or even more. People without extra pay, by the way. That's the kind of the big deal. The crunch time that is almost required without being required. It's a wink, and if you don't do it, you're fired, kind of thing. Yeah, the stress that comes with games and the volatility that comes with working in the industry is very stressful, and it's hard to have one job for a very long time. Now, I suppose there's a couple of places I could have stayed, but I've had way too many jobs in this industry. And it's very easy to see how some people can basically lose their careers by a couple of little things that if a union were around wouldn't have happened.
Yep. And what was I about to say? Oh, and as Getter said earlier about there are some places where oh man, my voice is going in and out. There are some places like if they don't credit you, they may not credit you for your work on a game. So then how do you get a job at your next studio?
Well, also games go away. I've worked on many games that I just have to be like, well, there's no actual proof of this game anymore, but I worked on it, so it's just too much stuff. Like a film, if it's big enough, it's never going away. It's stored somewhere. But an old game isn't necessarily stored anywhere.
Don't get me started on game preservation today. I don't think I have enough voice in me to talk about that one. But as you said, this is not an issue that's going to be going away anytime soon. And I think this is, again, one of those major allures of the independent space, that you are free to do what you want, and you're free to get credited for it. Like, if someone says they're the... Oh, I know, for example, they say they're the composer on, like, Supergiant Games, Transistor, Bastion, or the like.
Yeah.
That's a major credit right there. Or if someone is the writer of Gone Home, or the designer on... I don't know, or... I'm trying to think of some really good examples right now, and I don't know. Let's say Stardew Valley that I just played last night. If you say you're the designer of Stardew Valley, you're the designer of that entire game. So that's some really great credit. Yeah,
and also the opposite can be true. If you're the designer of a flop, of an infamously bad flop, well, that could be your career. It could be over, even if it wasn't your fault.
Narration, The Dark Sunday, someone like the Slaughtering Grounds, that developer, or the person who's caught up in that copyright issue with their music. Like, as we said, like, the industry doesn't give you credit until it does, and then you're kind of, in the spotlight. Like Sid Meier, for instance. I mean, we know who he is by now. But, like, if you're known as... Or that developer who said, I want to go kill Gabe Newell. Like, his career basically ended in 24 hours after that.
Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. The person. Yeah. Gotcha. I thought he was like, Gabe Newell, his career is over. What? when did this happen?
Or Phil Fish. That would be another really great example. You say one very bad thing, and then that haunts you for the rest of your career.
By the way, this was something that, and this is a total aside, and I apologize for this diversion. You say Gabe Newell, and recently I was looking at a list of the 100 richest people in the world in tech, He's the only games related person. He's like number 50 in the richest tech people in the world. So he's done something right, I guess. Sorry, I thought I'd throw that little tidbit out there.
Yeah. Well, it's just a very lopsided thing, as we're saying, that you're either a well-known figure who everyone loves, you're a figure that everyone hates,
Yeah.
or you don't exist at all in the game industry.
Yeah, and that latter one is obviously the vast majority of people. Now, a lot of people know each other, and certainly know people who know people.
Yeah.
I mean, as you will hear in most industries, it's a very small world, and everyone knows everyone. And that's true to some extent. But certainly in the areas of games that I've been in, there are people who know nothing about games or the industry itself. And then when you get in the middle, it's very, I mean, to say the word incestuous is kind of a bad term to use, but like it is. Everyone does know everybody. But as you get to the fringes, you get to people who don't know anything about anybody else. And it's just a strange, there's the Blazinski, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's it is a strange business.
Yeah.
Because you can have a foot in and a foot out.
And that everybody knows everybody. Like, what happens when someone in your studio, says something bad or gets caught in controversy, and then people go, "Oh, well, I'm not going to buy that game." Like, again, it's just a very weird sense of celebrity in this industry.
It is, and it is one of those things where when you tell people you work in games, and I'm sure you've run into this being a games journalist, Josh, is that when you tell people that, the first thing people think of, is you work for a AAA company. And then you have to explain, well, in my past, I've had to explain, well, no, I've worked on games you've probably never heard of, unless you have little kids or unless you're just a very obscure gamer. It's strange to introduce yourself to other people as being in this business, because there is a very specific thing people think of.
Yeah. Like, if you say you make video games, they'll think, oh, you make World of Warcraft or Minecraft or something like that.
I often get people just start talking to me about games that I have no idea about, I've never played or even heard of, and oftentimes they're a little too popular for me to have that excuse. But it's weird. It's a strange thing.
Yep. And again, like, only like a handful of games reach that celebrity status, and then everyone just assumes that it's all built. Or just remember my point. This is what gets back to when people say, "Oh, the game industry is this," or "the game industry is that." You can't really say that because there is no central element of the game industry.
Right. It is. It's a weird place.
Yeah. But with that said, we are about 50 minutes in, so I figure let's move on to talking about, I guess, catching up about 2017. And that will probably take us to the end for tonight. Again, we're not done with talking about this. I'm sure this will come up many times in 2018. But 2017, as I said in a video this past week, was definitely a banner year for the game industry. We've had some really amazing games come out. So I guess I already gave my top 10 list over on Game Wisdom. So for you, Rob, I'm going to put you on the spot now. What were your favorite games of 2017?
See, that's a problem, because my favorite game, I've mentioned this before, my favorite games of 2017 were made in like 2010 or 2012. I'll just encapsulate 2017 as this for me, because it was a very unique year for me too. Now, what dominated my play early on was Planet Coaster, because I bought that game, I love that game, and even though it was made in 2016, I would still call it a 2017 game, because that's, it was very late 2016. And to me, that's always going to be the game of the year. They just, as a sim game, as a toy type thing, they really went nuts. It is far and beyond just a much better experience, much more fluid, much more creative experience than any other theme park game before it, and even a lot of other sim style games. So it's a very amazing tool like that I've never come across before. Also in 2017 was kind of the year I really dived into ARPGs. It's when I started streaming. I realized early on, for my purposes, since you're more a journalist and I was just more screwing around streamer, that ARPGs were much more exciting to show than a lot of the other games that I've done. And I got into this when I got into Titan Quest and Torchlight 2, I should say again, because I know those games a long time. But and then towards the end of the year, that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to branch out a little bit since I played Torchlight 2 for so long. And that's when I got Grim Dawn and Victor Vran and stuff like that. So I'm starting to branch out a little bit, but I'm still very much catching up to games that have been out for a while. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's kind of where I'm always at. I'm just kind of the guy who plays older games by a couple of years or longer.
Yeah, I guess for me, my first really big streaming game was Darkest Dungeon, and now I need to find something else to occupy that. So I kind of went the generalist route just because I'm trying to see what else will stick.
Well, you have to. You have to have your pulse on everything, or your finger on the pulse of everything, I should say. Whereas me, I'm kind of in the business, and I'm not beholden to know everything, just what I'm working on at that time. So it is a strange. I will say that I also got more into the esports aspect of things than I had, and learning a lot about that culture and that like what people think of it from the outside, the production values, how much money the studios are putting into it, and everyone actually buying into it. I feel like esports in terms of, and Josh can talk to this, I think, but where there is battle royale and there was loot boxes, esports is also one of those things that a lot of major companies are trying to latch on to, and that's another discussion, obviously. But that is an interesting a case in point what I'm working on, I guess. But that is an interesting piece of the business that I'm starting to learn and be very excited about.
Man, it's going to be interesting to see
Thank you, Josh. Makes me feel better.
It's going to be interesting to see just what happens in 2018 in terms of, again, that esports and that greater notoriety in terms of outside of the game industry for video games.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is going to change a lot this year. I feel like it's only getting bigger, and more people are starting to realize that it's a viable thing. And I know too many people who, when I talk about esports, they're like, "Oh man, if me and my friends had gotten into that, we'd be top." Then I'm like, "No, it's apples and oranges when you talk about these pros versus a gamer." But it is an interesting thing. I'm looking forward to how that goes. Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of lost in my own thoughts, so I'll let you move forward.
Josh was talking about Overwatch. I guess, how is Overwatch doing? Because I know we spoke about this earlier in 2017. It seemed like it wasn't really gaining all that much. But I know it's still, again, Blizzard is going to be doing their damnedest to keep that one going.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting balance out there. Like Overwatch, you got, but when you look at the big ones, the ones that generate the big money, I feel like those are the ones you got to really pay attention to, because a lot of the ones that are out there that are trying to become a big esport, unless the money's there, a lot of companies can put a ton of money in it to market it, but unless the money's there for a player, I don't think it's going to be a long-lasting game.
Yep, and there's only so many games that can occupy their respective genres.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like with the whole Battle Royale thing, it's going to be very hard to see what game comes out on top.
It will, especially because I don't think that game has been completed yet. I think in the next year and a half, you'll see a better Battle Royale game come out that PUBG is going to have to figure out what to do about. Certainly, there's genres within that genre that we can't imagine, because you got Counter-Strike, which is a great esports game, but on the other hand, you got League of Legends and Dota that are basically also top of the food chain in the exact same genre, still doing very well, but not anywhere close to Counter-Strike. So there might be Battle Royale games out there that have that PUBG Counter-Strike feel, or you might have something completely wackadoodle different that we haven't quite thought of yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's only a matter of time before Blizzard creates their own Battle Royale style game at this point.
Yeah, like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They seem to be able to jump on every bandwagon out there and do a pretty decent job.
I guess for you, Rob, For 2017, or I guess looking into 2018, anything that has you really excited?
I do. I think that the esports thing is going to keep my interest. Now, I also might get back into the whole console world at some point, but in terms of things that are keeping my interest, esports is going to be up there. Obviously, your and Game Wisdom's progress is going to be up there. I'm very interested to see how you guys do, or how you do, because like an indie game, if you're not there, Game Wisdom isn't there. Um, but I do. I think you're going to have a good year, and I'm hoping to see what happens. But as I've been talking about, I think esports is going to be hold the attention for me the most.
Great. Yeah. I guess for me, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm really excited about. I would love to get my hands on a Switch just to finally see what it's all about. But I'm really curious to see. Oh man, my mouth is starting to die on me. Really curious to see about what's going on with. I guess. Trying to think if there's anything really. I guess I really want to see more what's going to be happening with Steam and the whole green light system, and see if someone else will actually come out and be a valid competitor.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I feel like every year you can look forward to that, and it just doesn't happen. It's so disappointing, but you never know. This year might be the year.
Yeah. I did see more people talk about Rainbow Six Siege. I saw it on sale, but I know I'm definitely not good enough at first-person shooter to play that one.
Yeah, first-person shooters are a mixed bag for me. I'm so terrible, and I'm rarely interested in playing them, but they are such a big part of the industry that it's hard to ignore.
Mm-hmm.
I've only barely heard about the immersive sims, so I don't know much about that thing. Let's see, I'm trying to read the comments.
And I'm curious to see what else is going to be coming from. I guess Japan will be another very interesting thing, because we've seen some really standout games in 2017 from Persona, Nier, and I'm sure there's plenty of others, or like Yakuza as well. So I'm curious to see what else is going to be coming. I would really love to see more Japanese developers embrace the PC. We know Monster Hunter is coming to the PC, but it would be really amazing if we saw something like Yakuza be on the PC, or whatever game's coming out next from Platinum Games, the makers of Bayonetta.
Well, I feel like there's such a focus on, and I feel like this has been the problem, and it's great to see if the country's output as a whole and the games industry is going to come back, because it did. It had a lull, and I just wonder if they didn't move fast enough to get on board with all these fast changing things. Mm-hmm. There's been a Nintendo brush against mobile, which I don't think I liked very much. But mobile's a big area where that country needs to go into, as well as, like you mentioned, PC.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Nintendo to get on the PC. I would love to see, Nintendo games like, similar to what like the Sega Genesis collection is. But who knows if that will ever happen?
Probably not. It probably won't,
Yeah.
until the consoles just go away and basically are part of entertainment system. I don't think they're going to make much of a leap to computers.
Yeah, but you never know these days.
Yeah. I am sorry, XP.
Aww. And
I'm hanging my head in shame now.
and Laura's mentioning, of course, Hokido no Ken, which I believe that's the Fist of the North Star, that they're making the game based on that popular manga and anime.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as a whole though, that I know that people have been missing it, because I don't know, like the games, the feel, except for on Nintendo, seems to have slipped a little bit. Whereas I'm a huge fan of the old Capcom games. I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
And Square, of course.
And of course, it would be nice to get a new Castlevania game, but the Metroidvania developer, of course, is working on his own game.
Yeah.
Konami's making pachinko games now, so
Yeah, well, they've always made pachinko
Yeah.
games.
I guess Castlevania Pachinko could be next.
Yeah,
Oh.
well, they already have that stuff. Like, they already have Nintendo pachinko style games that I implore everybody to look them up on YouTube. They are crazy to watch. The tech that goes into them is ridiculous.
I think I got it, Rob. A Pachinko Metroidvania game with loot boxes that also is its own battle royale mode. There we go. 100 people can play the game at the same time, but only one person can win.
Right. There you go.
Alright. Konami, look me up. We gotta get in business right now.
There you go.
I guess for 2018, are there any games you're really excited about?
That's a good question. I mean, the one I'm working on, but that's just because I have a vested interest. It's hard for me to say. I really don't know. I don't have anything in particular to speak to. I mean, there's that one, and I always forget the name of it. I always forget the name of the science fiction game that's just going overboard and has all the money in the world. It just is too much. Why can I never? No. The one that everyone's mad about and suing.
Star Citizen.
Yes, Star Citizen. I want to see what happens with that.
I think myself as well, and a lot of other people are just sitting back with popcorn and just waiting to see what's going to happen there.
Yeah. When I first heard about it through you, I was like, oh my god, this is just I can't not watch this. It's a train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It is popcorn munching, viewing pleasure.
Yeah. When Brian from Space Game Junkie is free, I'm going to have him on. We need to talk about Star Citizen because he was one of the original backers for that. So.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear the opinion of an actual backer.
Yeah. So I mean, that is just a super slow motion train wreck. I think at this point.
Yeah.
It's a new demo for supporters. Yeah, I have no idea how that game's going to end. But if it actually releases a game, I think we'll all be shocked about that one.
Well, and that's where you gotta, I think, Ready Player One actually to tie it all together. That book and Star Citizen reminds me of that book. It reminds me of them trying to make the game that is Ready Player One, and that is what makes me intrigued.
Oh, that's a good one. I should write that down for my presentation. See if I can pitch that to them.
I mean, once you get further in the book, I think you'll start drawing some of the parallels.
I'm not sure if Mike is talking to this Josh or the other Josh in chat. How did Robbie go? Sure. There's too many Joshes on once again. Let's see. I guess for me, games I'm really excited about. I just thought of one. How did Rami? Oh, there we go. That makes more sense. It went well. The cast should have gone up on Friday. He is out traveling, but hopefully once he gets back, we'll be able to have another chat about free-to-play design. Or expect the game to release. Ready, Josh 1. There we go. I think that's the name of the presentation. I think we just got it right there.
Yep.
What was I about to say? I was just saying about games that have been pushed back. Death Stranding. I'm sure that one will be very interesting, although who knows when that one will come out. I'm trying to think if there's anything like really interesting to me for 2018. I guess that's a weird thing. I only hear about these games when they're like 1 to 2 weeks away from coming out, just because I don't try to pay attention too much. But I got people who send me stuff like El Gordo on Twitter, letting me know what games to spy on. So that's how I learn about most of my games, like a week or two before they're actually released.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually I don't learn about games until 2 years after they're done.
Well, at least that saves you on paying full retail for them.
Oh, it does. And usually I don't buy them for another 5 years because I'm still catching up on games that I've had for 10 years.
Oh yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to be coming out soon. Oh boy. I know, let me pull up Steam's coming soon list. I'm sure that will have some very amazing games coming out. Let's see what we got here. Let's see, curators. Let's see what's upcoming. Bus Driver Simulator. There we go.
All right.
That will be our next Let's Play for the channel. Let's see. Lots of visual novel games, of course. Oh, here's the game. There's a game called Sockman that's coming out soon. Let's see. Yeah. This looks very cutting edge right here.
Yeah.
I guess.
Fuck, man.
Eh. Oh, good. Thank you, Lil Gordo. He's the one who lets me know about the most of these games. So that's how I figure them out. Or a few of the forums I visit. But yeah, there's just too many games to look at to try and pay attention to otherwise.
Yeah, I actually I rely on the Discord to get a lot of the news articles that I like to read. So I appreciate you guys putting stuff on there.
Oh my goodness, so many games coming out. Look at this. There's at least like 20 games coming out on January 10th on Steam.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other part is how the indie games, how the Steam market continues to increase and continues to rise. Can it rise? Is it going to rise more than it did last year? Because last year was kind of the pinnacle of 2016 and 2017 were like indie games are you can't launch one anymore. So I want to see if that declines or if that continues to rise. The number of indie games that come out.
Oh, here's our next game, Sexy Serial Killer. There we go. That's going to be our next one to look at. I know. You, Josh, or the other Josh, we can all play that one together. We'll make it a 3-person stream right there.
It sounds intriguing. It's a weird. I mean, obviously they are looking to get that head turning factor, but it sounds interesting.
Oh yeah, Dusk should be coming out soon. I mean, at the rate I already played through the second chapter, so I'll probably beat the whole game before it's actually released if they give it to us early. Oh yeah, Josh mentioned there's the new Yakuza game. They're actually doing a remake of Yakuza 2, and they're also going to be releasing Yakuza, I want to say 6, which is going to be the last one with the series head Kazuma Kiryu, who I think everyone now loves him as like the greatest open world protagonist in a game, just because he gets distracted by everything. He has to go and do these side quests. I'm sure there's another Persona game. I think they said there's a new Shin Megami Tensei game at some point. But yeah, I would really love to hear more news about what's next from Crate Entertainment. Again, the guys who made Grim Dawn. Let's see. I know Clay Entertainment's working on a new game, although there's been very little detail about it. But yeah, again, like there's just so many games out that I really just don't pay attention to them until they're like right about to be released, and then I want to get a press key for them. Oh, here's another one. Virtual Yoga Retreat. There we go. I'm sure we can all do that one.
I feel like that's just a VR. Everyone's doing yoga on VR. Done. Game's over.
Yeah. Or first-person shooters. There's been a lot of them on VR from what I've seen. I guess, that's a really good point. I guess, let me see. Yeah, we're over an hour, and this could be our final, I guess, wrapper for tonight, Rob. I guess, from your own opinion, I guess, for the folks watching this as well, do you think 2018 will be a good year for VR? Because, again, 2016 was kind of like, it's coming out, it's going to be here. 2017 was a year that it's here, but we really haven't seen much out of it. I guess, what do you think about 2018 with VR?
I mean, the way I've thought for a long time, I think no. I think it's either going to stagnate or maybe even start to decline a little bit. Now, this is a total prediction. Completely, don't call me on it next year. I will happily say I'm wrong, but I don't know. I was never that behind VR as a huge success. I know a lot of people are turning back to AR, and that's becoming popular again. I feel like it's the social aspect that really keeps it on top of VR. So I do feel like that. Yeah, I agree. VR bubble popping. I agree with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. At least in terms of video games, I'm sure there's still going to be more applications outside the game industry. But yeah, I just have a really bad feeling for all the developers who immediately jumped at making VR-only studios.
Yeah, I do feel bad there. Certainly, I do think that it's still a great place for an indie person to do some good stuff. Enough people are going to own them that they're going to want content, and good content that really embraces VR is gonna do well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As a Josh said, I think the simulator market would do really well with VR, but the problem is that just that one specific niche is not going to be enough to build an entire industry over. And like, I'm just not. Again, I've yet to see the game that makes me go, I want to play this in VR.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very tough for a lot of those developers. I'm sure we're just like with the mobile scene, we're going to have like one or two standout developers or publishers kind of become the trend makers. But then what's going to happen to everybody else?
Yeah.
I guess, what do you... speaking about mobile, I guess that's another really good point. What do you think will happen with mobile in 2018? Do you think... We've been, again, talking about bubble bursting or things trying to change, but do you think anything will happen?
No, I mean, that's the problem with VR, is that it's limited to only a few people that are going to be able to own it and enjoy it. Mobile, everyone owns, and everyone plays games on mobile, and I feel like one thing that might happen is it might become a little more accepted to buy games up front in mobile, which I really hope takes off. I'm hoping loot boxes start to crash, and that's for the entire industry. I hope that starts to crash a little bit. It'll stick around, but I hope that there's some aspects of it that people actually that gets polished and don't leave people with a feeling of disgust. But I don't think mobile's going anywhere. I think it's only going to get bigger. As the devices themselves continue to get like bigger and better, the games on them are going to become more sophisticated, even more so than they already are.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we start to see like those premium mobile games trying to come up.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I guess, as a final point there, the Switch is going to be very interesting to see, because a lot of people report that 2017 was basically Nintendo's best year for Nintendo Switch. I think it outsold like the most highest selling console in 10 months.
Yeah, I know my sister actually got that, and the only other console she's owned since in the last 20 years is the Wii. So it's definitely hitting people who don't play a lot of games, and it's actually a gaming system, as opposed to the Wii, which was in a lot of people's minds a toy at the time. But yeah, right now it's an actual video game system. I finally got to play Mario Kart for the first time in years and years, and wallop my nieces. Until they can wallop me, I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah. And I think it will be also very interesting to see if the Switch does continue to be kind of like the new indie platform for a lot of developers have been going to the Switch for getting their games. And it's just very interesting to hear about like Nintendo kind of, being back up in terms of popularity after the last few years.
Yeah. I feel like they go through that.
Oh, yeah.
Popular console, not popular console. Popular console, not popular console. They're very up and down.
Yeah. But I think with that said, my voice is starting to die on me. I still have more talking to do for today. So we're going to wrap it up for this week. So again, Rob, thank you so much for coming on. And hopefully we'll be able to do this again next Sunday.
Sounds good. Yeah. Good to be back, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Yep, Happy New Year to everyone as well. I'm going to be trying to make that thank you video for 2017, hopefully this week once my voice is completely back, but we shall see. For tonight, I should be doing regular streaming. I'm debating if I want to do more Prey or Grim Dawn tonight. We'll have to see how I feel later. But, trying to think if there's any other news. Like I said, oh yeah, I'll be making a small video to let you guys know about the Saturday Night Grab Bag being refreshed. And once I get confirmation for this week's live cast, I will let you guys know. But otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in and enjoying us throughout 2017. Hopefully 2018 will be even better. Be sure to, of course, check back for daily videos on design here and on game, or daily discussions on design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. For you, Rob, have you gone back to your regular streaming schedule yet?
No. I've been hit and miss. I really want to stream my hitting level 100 in Torchlight. That's probably my next big stream. Hopefully next weekend. We'll see.
All right. And you're still at twitch.tv/IndieVoyage, Rob?
Yeah, I am.
All right. So with that said, thank you guys for coming out. Again, if you'd like to talk to us on a more frequent basis, be sure to check out patreon.com/UWBicer to get access to our private Discord channel. I did open it up for New Year's Day and Eve celebration. We got a few new people on for that. But be sure to check things out over there. So, until our next stream, have a great night. And I guess I'll see you throughout the week, and we'll be back next Sunday. Until then, have a great day and a great, I guess, start of 2018.